College basketball Tuesday night. Kansas beat Kentucky 89-84 in the second game of the Champions Classic. Yes, we'll get to the first in just a bit. Deadleg, you watched it. Deadleg, you wrote about it. Give me your impressions from KU's win over UK.
Well, I wrote about Kentucky, but I'll acknowledge Kansas off the top here. A very entertaining game. Really, made up for Duke, Michigan State being just okay, and we'll get to that in just a couple minutes here. Kansas ruled the paint as expected. Kentucky didn't have it didn't have any kind of size to really match up with KU. This was the sixth time in the past 8 meetings the Jayhawks have come out on top versus the Wildcats. And Dickinson, 27 and 21, amazing performance there. He was the first Big 12 player to go for at least 25 and 20 against a ranked foe since Blake Griffin did it back in 2008. When Blake Griffin did it, he did it against Davidson when Davidson was ranked. I actually, weirdly enough, remember that game. The first Kansas guy to have a 25-20 game, by the way, since Thomas Robinson did it, 12 years ago. So big time stuff. According to Kansas, there had not been a player that had gone for 25 or more points and 20 or more rebounds, which Dickinson did. That had not happened for a Kansas player since at least 1996-97, which is when a lot of these stat references, Stats Inc. goes back to the 96-97 season. So huge stuff. And yet, Kevin McCullough had the third technical triple-double in Kansas history, joining Jeff Withey and Cole Aldrich. I'm pretty sure Wilt had a triple-double or two, but blocks weren't an official assist or official stat back then. But regardless, McCullough was like the third most notable player. I mean, DeJuan Harris had a career high 23. So good on KU to get the win, to come back, close on an 11-1 run in a game that had 8 ties, 10 lead changes. But I did write about Kentucky because even in a loss, and I know Kentucky fans won't, take a loss. And I led the column by saying, Kentucky fans are not going to just accept a loss with a smile on their face. I get that, but it's undeniable. Like, Kentucky looked fun as hell. It shot 38 3-pointers, which broke the record by 5 of the most triple attempts in one game under Calipari. Only made 12 of them. By the way, Antonio Reeves took 17 of those threes, or 18 of them, 17 or 18 of them. He only made 3 of them, but Rob Dillingham, I mean, he had a stretch in the first half, which was outrageous, where he hit 3 after 3 after 3. Reed Shepherd looked good. Those two were well composed. And the fact that you didn't have, Kentucky didn't have the size, it didn't have Big Z, didn't have Big U, or didn't have Big A. Aaron Bradshaw, the freshman 5-star, he's still hurt. Ugonna Onyeso is still hurt. And then Zvonimir Ivicevic is still not clear by the NCAA. So they didn't have the size down low, but it didn't matter in terms of Kentucky keeping it competitive, having a chance with less than a minute to go. Reeves had 24. I came away, Adu Thiero had 16 and 13. There's a lot of here, like some inconsistencies. Yes. Kentucky, is it going to blow a game or two this season because of its youth? Yes. Do I think it's actually going to steal a couple of games because of how much pizzazz is here and some promise? I do. So I come away with this with some genuine optimism, or at least relief, that when we watch Kentucky this year, GP, it's not going to be, at least it shouldn't be, we're early, but it shouldn't be a slog. I saw, when you watch the way that even Wagner didn't play well, you watch the way this team wants to get up and down. They're young. They don't know what they don't know, but there's enough there that I think this team is going to be quite a thrill ride this season.
It's like Cal was on a Kentucky message board, like scrolling through, and he's like, "Oh, some of you guys want Nate Oates to replace me? Watch this. Here's 38 threes for you." He was into it. Seriously. I like, that's modern. It wasn't perfect, but it's certainly more modern than it has been in recent years. And like you said, and I tweeted this last night as well, hey, no moral victories. This is a big blue nation, as they say. But when you are in a game with the number 1 team in the country in the final minute, in the final seconds of the final minute, and your two of your projected first round picks, Justin Edwards and DJ Wagner, combined to go 1 of 18 from the field. I mean, I think you, how about that? You don't have to feel good about it, but I bet you, if you're a Kentucky fan, you wake up this morning and you go, all right, I saw some stuff that makes me think this might really be fun and really be successful. If it's possible for Kentucky to lose a game in the Champions Classic, to another blue blood and feel good about itself or encouraged about itself. I think that's what happened last night.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. We'll see if it can continue. I just think it will. I mean, Dillingham, he can be a blur. And there were definitely times between Wagner and Dillingham where, they probably gave away 5 or 6 possessions. Shepard's poise is undeniable, at least at this point. I meant to bring this up. Let me bring up a friend of the show, Sam Vicini. Sam, we'll try and get you in here before the end of it. Sam tweeted last night. Where was this tweet? He said, hear me out. What if Reed Shepard is just Kentucky's best player straight up? Great shooter, unbelievable hands on defense, phenomenal basketball IQ. Love watching this dude. I agree. Love watching this dude. I don't know who Kentucky's best player is. Maybe it will be Reed Shepard, who was the lowest ranked of the 5 incoming freshmen, I believe, the 5 notable incoming freshmen. But there is certainly, an element of composure that gets added to Kentucky when he is on the floor. Of course, he's the son of Jeff Shepard. Get ready to hear that every single game for the entirety of his career. But nonetheless, local kid does good, brings real hope to Lexington, and had a pretty terrific night overall. If anything, Dillingham's foul trouble kept him off the floor. I thought that was a major thing. But Shepard having 15 points, he went 4 or 5 from the field. 3 of those were threes in addition to 4 steals. So Wagner's going to play better. Edwards will certainly play better. Like, it's eye-opening that Edwards just was a no-show. He just was. And we didn't expect that to be the case. But they've got enough guys who seem eager and competent enough. And even like Trey Mitchell, I thought he did about as well as you could do against Dickinson. Like, he didn't have a great game, but he had some nice moments in there as well. So for Kentucky being shorthanded, I mean, I thought they did well. Kentucky still hasn't had 10 or more turnovers in a game yet either, GP. Some good early signs. You don't want the loss, but you didn't get run out of the gym. I mean, you had the lead. Yes, you blew a lead. You're young, but some encouraging early signs. And we haven't talked about Kentucky in this kind of context many times over the past 5 or 6 seasons in the first week or 2 of the season. Some more losses are going to come. But again, this team looks fun, and it's going to be worth watching, I think, way more often than not.
Another thing Sam tweeted last night was about the NBA prospects, that are going to be presumably eligible for the 2024 NBA draft, because we had some of them on display last night. And I couldn't agree more with what he said, which is like, how many of these guys feel like actual lottery picks? Like, it feels like whoever you think should be the number 1 pick in the next draft would be like the number 5 pick in a normal draft. It doesn't feel like there's a traditional like number 1. That guy might emerge, but it doesn't feel like he's here yet. I can't see him.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And listen, we'll see what develops with this college class overall. Another projected number 1 pick didn't even get a win last night. We'll get into that later in the show out west. My last thought on this game was, and maybe it was just Kansas' size, and Kansas isn't overwhelmingly deep. Bill Self coaches his team to another tremendous one. What do you want? Like Dillingham, Shepard, Wagner to instead, like it can play small, but sometimes like they look small as well. So how they hold up to the rigors of a 35, 37, 38 game schedule remains to be seen. But I guess credit to Cal. Finally, you got to get the wins. You can be fun, but they're not going to, you can't go, 3-10 against ranked competition this season. Not saying it will, but at least you had some gusto to you. And that was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. And I would add, like, I don't know where this thing is going, although I would be more optimistic about Kentucky today than I was, say, this time yesterday. After watching them lose, I would be more encouraged by what I saw. But I do think if you are a Kentucky fan who feels like, man, things have just gotten stale, there's a Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame coach last night with a national championship and 1 million Final Four appearances who quite clearly has decided we're going to play a different way. Like, we're going to change the way we've been doing things. And again, if you're looking for encouraging stuff from last night, there was a lot of it from players, but I think that was from the coaching staff. That was on the list of things as well. On Reed Shepard, Pat Forty, of course, longtime columnist, longtime friend from the great state of Kentucky, or Commonwealth of Kentucky, whatever the proper way is to do that. He said, sort of as Reed Sheppard was getting one bucket after another, like, there were people who said this guy wouldn't play at Kentucky. In fairness, like, I might have been one of those people. I just, certainly as a freshman, I just assume somebody ranked 79th in a high school class is not going to be able to play for John Calipari at Kentucky as a freshman, if only because, like, somebody go look it up. I bet it's either never happened or very rarely happened. Somebody ranked, let's draw a line, 75th or lower in their high school class who was a real meaningful rotation player as a true freshman at Kentucky. I bet that list is either non-existent or short under John Calipari. And so I think it's reasonable to assume Reed Sheppard might have had trouble getting on the court at Kentucky early. And, he did only play 16 minutes. So it's not like he went out and played 30 or something like that. But in those 16 minutes, undeniably, if you were watching it, he looked the part. He looked like he belonged. And it wasn't just because he was making shots. He looked like he belonged. A great night for Kansas because, they're the number one team with a win over Kentucky and 3-0, and their, all-American caliber transfer just had a historically great game on a big stage. Bad night for the Hunter Dickinson is overrated crowd because he didn't look like that at all. So great night for Kansas, but I think also a good night for Kentucky. And now I saw even Kansas Kentucky fans last night tweeting in my mentions or somebody's mentions like, "Hey, see you guys in April." So there was some respect there. I'm sure disdain as well, but some respect there after 40 minutes of basketball.